All right, today we're doing something really cool. We're going to upgrade our thinking. We're diving into the ideas of the legendary investor Charlie Munger to, well, debug our own minds and install a much wiser way of operating. So let's get ready to reboot the way we all make decisions.
I mean, you've seen it, right? Somebody who's absolutely brilliant does something that makes you scratch your head and go, what were they thinking? And let's be honest, we've all been that person at some point. So what is going on there?
Munger's whole idea here is that our brains come with this pre-installed software that's just full of bugs. These are what he calls the standard causes of human misjudgment, these deep psychological tendencies that lead us astray, usually without us even having a clue.
So think of this whole explainer as a system update for your brain. We're going to run a diagnostic, find those bugs, install some really high-performance software, and get you running on a much cleaner, much more effective mental operating system.
Okay, first things first, we have to find the bugs. In the world of psychology, we call these cognitive biases, and they are pretty much the root cause of so many of our mistakes.
And here's the key thing. These are not random mistakes. Cognitive biases are predictable, repeatable errors in our thinking. They're those faulty default settings that Munger was talking about, and just learning to spot them is the very first step to debugging your mind.
All right, let's get into our first major bug. Munger famously said that he spent his entire life underestimating the power of incentives. It is this incredibly powerful force that just quietly shapes everything we do, and it can make really good people do some pretty terrible things if the incentives are all wrong.
To really see how powerful this is, you got to hear the story Munger tells about a guy named Patterson. So Patterson owned a small store, and his employees were basically robbing him blind. He was losing money like crazy. Then he bought a couple of the very first cash registers, and boom, all of a sudden his store was profitable. Why? The cash registers simply made it way harder to steal. It completely changed the incentives. It became what he called a great moral instrument just by making honesty the easiest path.
Okay, here's another huge bug in our system. This deep, instinctual need to give something back when we're given something first. You know, it's kind of the glue that holds society together, but it can also be super easily manipulated by what Munger called compliance practitioners. Basically, people who know exactly how to push our buttons to get us to say yes.
Check out this brilliant experiment by the psychologist Robert Cialdini. First, he went up to college students and asked, "Hey, would you be willing to take some juvenile delinquents to the zoo?" About 17% of them said yes. Okay. But then he tried something different with another group. He first asked for a massive commitment. Will you mentor these kids for 2 afternoons a week indefinitely? Of course, everyone said no. But right after they refused, he asked, okay, well, how about just taking them to the zoo that one time? The agreement rate shot up to 50%. That tiny little concession, just him backing down from that huge request, it triggered this powerful, totally unconscious need in people to reciprocate.
All right, so we've identified a couple of really critical bugs. Now it's time for the fun part, the upgrade. Munger's solution to all of this is to build what he called a latticework of mental models. These are powerful thinking tools from all different fields that help you see the world with way more clarity.
The best way to think about mental models is like they're apps for your brain. Each one gives you a brand new framework to look at a problem. So instead of just having one tool, like a hammer where everything looks like a nail, you build a full toolkit, and that lets you tackle any problem from a bunch of different angles.
So our first upgrade is a fantastic one called inversion, and it's all about flipping a problem completely on its head. Most of us, we spend all our time thinking about how to achieve success. Munger says it's often way more useful to think about what would cause failure and then just avoid that stuff. So instead of asking, how can I be happy, you ask, what would absolutely guarantee I'd be miserable? Well, the answers are pretty obvious. Envy, resentment, being unreliable, just stay away from those things and your odds of being happy go way up. This next model, it's all about intellectual honesty. See, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but what you absolutely have to know is the edge of your own expertise. Munger and his partner Warren Buffett, they made their fortune by only ever making decisions inside their circle of competence. And what's really fascinating is that modern research actually shows that simply being aware of what you don't know is a better predictor of making good decisions than just raw intelligences. So, you've found the bugs, you've installed the upgrades. That's fantastic. But just like any high-performance system, your new mental OS needs regular maintenance, and that's where wise habits come in. You know, it's so tempting to think we can just add good habits on top of everything else.
But that's like trying to install new software on a computer that's just riddled with viruses. The old, corrupted patterns, they're just going to undermine the new ones. Munger knew that real change requires a two-front war. You have to actively uninstall the bad habits while you're consciously installing the good ones. One without the other, it just rarely works.
And this, right here, this is the core habit. This is the ultimate maintenance routine. Munger truly believed that the single most important factor for success is becoming a perpetual learning machine. The goal isn't to become a genius overnight, it's just to get a tiny bit wiser every single day.
So how do we actually do this? Well, a great place to start is with our own self-talk, which is where a lot of these mental bugs tend to live. So here's a really simple but powerful technique you can use. First, the moment you notice that negative voice starting up, just shout "stop" in your head. Picture a giant red stop sign. Second, change the voice. Turn it into a silly, squeaky cartoon character. It's pretty hard to take criticism seriously when it sounds like Donald Duck. And finally, immediately replace that thought with a kind one. You are literally actively overriding the bad code in your brain.
And get this, here's another habit that's backed by some serious science. Research shows that the simple act of asking why questions, it's a technique called elaborative interrogation, it can boost your understanding and memory of new information by up to 40%. It just forces you to connect new stuff to what you already know, building that strong mental lattice work.
So why does all this matter? I mean, why go through all the trouble of debugging and upgrading and maintaining your thinking? Because the payoff, it isn't just a straight line, it's exponential.
And this is the magic of the whole thing. Becoming a little wiser each day doesn't just add up, it compounds. The knowledge you get today makes it easier to get even more knowledge tomorrow. And over a lifetime, these tiny daily improvements lead to a level of wisdom that is just orders of magnitude greater than where you started. So I'll leave you with this question. Don't try to do everything all at once. Just pick one thing. Is there one bias that you know you fall for all the time? Is there one mental model, like inversion, that you could use on a problem you're facing right now? Start small, be consistent, and just let the power of compounding do the rest of the work for you.